I want to touch back on the point that you mentioned earlier about like when you were getting to an architect, you had this manager versus architect decision to make, and you kind of played around with both. I have had a lot of people ask me about that, right? And almost seems like a natural progression of a software developer's career. At some point of time, let's say they're 10 years in or 15 years in, they're going to go, okay, now what next? Do I become a manager? Do I become an architect? And I've heard all this advice about like, yeah, if you like, working with people, then you become a manager. Otherwise, you become an architect. And I go, no, 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 no. If you are an architect, you have to be working with people as well. That's probably not a good reason to switch.
Even as a senior engineer, you need to be
Exactly.
good at working with people.
Exactly. Yeah. We live in a society, so we have to deal with people. What do you think is a good kind of way to gauge where somebody would need to go? Like if somebody was asking you that advice, what would you tell them as a good barometer for choosing one versus another?
Sure. That is a great question. To me, the thing that I've learned, I think early on, is that a manager, even a technical manager, is not a step above an engineer. It's a different career path. It's a different set of responsibilities. It's a different set of skills. To be a manager, the things that make you good at an engineer and the things that make you good at a manager aren't necessarily complementary. They're a very different set of skills. And so I think I find the best managers that I've ever had have actually been pretty mediocre engineers, or certainly whether they were mediocre engineers or not. Don't pay attention to this. They weren't the lead engineers or they didn't get the job of a manager because of how they excelled as an engineer. And I will also say some of the worst managers I've ever had have been engineers that have just said, well, I need to do another career step here. Let me just go into management. That includes me, by the way. I think wasn't as effective as a manager as other managers were because that isn't what my skill set is for. So, I think it's if you're thinking about the question about, I need to do a career step beyond being an engineer today. Should I go into management? You're asking the wrong question. The question you should be asking is, of all the opportunities, and let's talk about all the different opportunities available to me, of all the opportunities for me to do in my career beyond just being a engineer that I'm doing right now, what's the next step? Management is one of them, but it's a set. Do I have the skills that are appropriate for that? Do I have the interest that's appropriate for that? I'll tell you, if you hate meetings, don't be a manager. I mean, that's just the way it works. And a lot of engineers hate meetings. Don't do that. But there's lots of other things you can be. You can certainly, most companies have a senior engineer route as well now too, right? Where you can keep moving up very, very high within the organization, very, very high within the value chain and therefore the salary range on the engineering track that's separate from the management track and separate from the architecture track. Being an architect is not the same thing as being a senior engineer. There are different career tracks. But also there's a brave new world of operations that's being, that SaaS in particular has opened up, but there's certainly, it's certainly been around for a lot longer than SaaS has been around, but SaaS has opened up the need for developer-focused operation individuals, and of course DevOps being the main but not only avenue into that. And that's a different set of skill sets that is very unique and different, that often gives you better career paths as well too. And even security, there's a lot of career opportunities and senior roles in security that depend on a high level of knowledge and expertise coming from a developer that's coming in. So your developer expertise can be a springboard to lots of different directions, not just management, not just architecture, but those certainly are two of several options that are available.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's also this, a follow-up question then about, like, you said, well, go with what what your skills take you, right? Your
I should just say skills and passion, right?
and passion. Okay.
They go together.
Yeah.
Passion,
Yeah.
you have to be passionate for what you're doing.
Right. No, that makes sense because the problem with skills is you don't quite know what you're skilled at until you start doing it. So passions is a great point. And one other thing that I always say is don't go away from something. So there is this common trend where people go like, yeah. So this is true for most industries, but specifically for software industry, it's like it changes a lot. So there is this constant need to learn and keep yourself updated, right? So a lot of people go like, yeah, this is something that I cannot find myself doing another 10 years, right? This is overwhelming me. And, I will have to do something so that I don't have the need to constantly learn, at least at that rate, and keep myself up to date. And that's the reason why they switch. So, well, my response to that would be like, you're finding a problem in what you're seeing as your next step in your career trajectory, and you're trying to go away from it. That's really not a good starting point, right? You should always go towards something you're passionate about, rather than going away from something that you don't like. If you feel like the software engineering, the individual contributor stream is not for you, then fine, it's time for you to consider a switch. But then see what is more appealing, what draws you in, rather than just find the next thing to, just jump at the next opportunity that comes your way. So, do you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a fantastic point of view. If you don't like what you're doing, or if you're getting tired of it and want to do something different, you don't have to follow the traditional paths of that role upwards. You can do laterals and do lots of different things to stay in the same high tech area if you're excited about high tech, but you don't have to, stay as a software engineer. I'll tell you, there's a huge opportunity for people who are highly skilled engineers to work in sales and marketing. Not as a salesperson, not as a marketing person, but as a subject matter expert to help the organization build content. I actually spent some time doing that at New Relic, where when my book came out, I was, an architect for New Relic, and this book came out, and they decided they wanted to put me on the road and the tour to talk to customers and things like that. And while you're here, can you also give us, can you make sure these blog posts, do they look technically accurate? And can you write some blog posts for us? And can you do all of this? And I ended up actually really enjoying a lot of that, to the point where that's kind of the sort of work that I'm doing now as a consultant. I'm doing a lot more of that. I'm doing both types of consulting, both engineering consultancy, but also the marketing consultancy. And I really enjoy that. It was very different than the role I was doing as a traditional architect.
Yeah.
But at the stage where I am in my career now, it's very far along and near the end. I'm in my last years before I started thinking about retiring. But for me at that stage, being the subject matter expert and helping others learn is exactly what I want to do. And whether those people who are learning are engineers, engineering management, or marketing, sales, customers, whatever that is, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy passing on knowledge. That's just kind of the way it works. That's not what you would think. That's not what I would have thought I would have been doing back when I was a developer. As I said, I don't code every day. Why would I want a job where I don't code every day?
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, it's been a few years since I've done significant amount of coding, a little bit here and there, but not significantly. It's just not the direction I'm headed with my career right now.